Welcome to Carpool Chats, and during this episode, we are going to be looking at the electrification of heavy-duty vehicles. We've got two incredible ladies joining us today, and we are going to be discussing the new Volvo Lights pilot project going on in California. I hope you enjoy. Hello, Kim. Hello, Don. Nice to have you guys on with us today. How's it going out there?
Doing fine, thanks. Good to be with you.
Yep,
Great.
things are fine here in Houston.
Great. We got Houston, we got the East Coast, and I'm really excited about the topic today. This is really an emerging discussion over the past 6 months. I know we've been hearing a lot about the heavy duty electrification and where things are going, and quite frankly, the tremendous amount of unknowns that are still out there. And it sounds like you guys are working on a pretty exciting project right now that's going to try to ferret out some of those unknowns and get some answers for the heavier duty industry. So, Don, can you give us a little bit of background on the Volvo Lights program?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So Volvo, together with 14 other partner companies and organizations, are participating in what we call the Volvo Lights project. It is a project that is funded by the California Air Resources Board, and the goal of the project is to demonstrate the commercialization of the use in commercial operations of battery electric vehicles. However, it's much more than just funding for vehicles and putting them on the road, because, as you know, the movement to electric vehicles is a whole new paradigm shift. It's requires all different fueling infrastructure and other kinds of support, and so that's why we have so many different project partners involved. And the project, as I said, is funded by CARB. The project is a $90 million project. It began back in 2018. It was initially announced, and it will be running until the middle of 2021. And through this project, we will be bringing not only 23 battery electric Class 8 trucks to operate on the road, but also the charging infrastructure that goes with them, some sales and service support. There will be workforce training through classes that are being offered at local community colleges in the area. And this project is running in Southern California. It is operating in the greater LA area, with these trucks running that route between the Inland Empire, where you have the large warehouse district in Southern California, to the ports on the coast, the Port of LA and Long Beach. And the trucks will be doing both that roll back and forth between the warehouse and the ports, as well as doing some more localized delivery in the Inland Empire.
Great, perfect location, right? From an air quality standpoint, I know that's been a focus in California for a very, very long time. They're just trying to find a way to skin that cat. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Kim, what a little bit about Trillium, please, and then I kind of wanted to roll in to ask, what is Trillium's role when we talk about the charging network, and how are we going to best facilitate under this pilot project? So please.
Yeah. So who is Trillium? So Trillium is the alternative fueling company for Love's Travel Stops. So Love's Travel and truck stops, we have over 500 truck stops across the country. Our primary customer is the over-the-road long-haul customer. Now, Trillium is the alternative fueling branch of the company, and we provide alternative fuels, including compressed natural gas, hydrogen, and electric vehicle charging. So our role in the Volvo Lights project is that we're providing the publicly accessible charging infrastructure at one of our existing CNG locations. And the purpose for that charging infrastructure is to, or that publicly accessible charging infrastructure is to assist with range anxiety, and just elongate the range that the truck can actually go in their service.
So this hub or your location, it's being built on an existing travel center piece of real estate, and so you've already got an area that's very well versed in heavy duty truck travel.
Yeah, so it's being built on an existing Trillium station. So a Trillium station is typically an unmanned station, so it won't have that the C-store, the corner store that we're used to with the Love's locations. The existing customer base at this station are drayage trucks, light duty vehicles, and other medium and heavy duty trucks. So that location has the space needed for a heavy and medium duty type truck. So it was kind of a perfect location to intermingle two different types of alternative fueling services.
That's great. And like in the preliminary stages of the study, did you get an idea or a feel for what your traffic will be for once we get the total amount of vehicles we've got? Dawn, I believe we've got one Class 8 truck now. We're going to have 6 more before the end of the year. Kim, did you guys sit back and look at how many trucks per day you're expecting to be charging there?
Yeah, so the interesting part about this is that it's an existing station already. So some of the things that we've been evaluating is that truck traffic, and specifically turning radiuses, and making sure that we have sufficient room for passing lanes for the trucks that are going to the station. So essentially, we want to make sure that the CNG trucks that are fueling aren't in the way of the EV trucks that are coming to the location. So taking a look at, okay, a Class 8 vehicle and having 2 Class 8 vehicles in the same location, is there room to actually make the turns and the passing lanes that are required so that everyone has a positive fueling experience? So that's one of the things that we've been looking really hard at in our design, in our preliminary design phase.
That's great. Any idea what the expected charge times will be, the well time will be for that driver while they're charging up?
Really good question. So this is one of the aspects that would be looked at very closely during the pilot project. So based on the location, so where our station is located, and the reason why this was kind of a perfect location is between the Inland Empire and both the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. The Anaheim or the Placentia station is dead smack in the middle. So it's about 25 miles to the Inland Empire and then another 25 miles out to the port. So as far as fueling times, it really depends on, what the state of charge that comes in, that the truck comes in at. So let's say they come in on the ingoing or they come in on the way back. It really depends on how long they're charging there. But what we've kind of our preliminary estimates are that if one truck is charging, we should expect a 30 minute to 60 minute charge time.
Got it. Great. And this is all stuff that is gonna be so important with this pilot test. Trying to create this roadmap or some best practices, and so we're all very fortunate. And I'm looking forward to this moving forward, and actually a follow-up call with both of you down the road to talk about some of the results. I'm very interested in that. Dawn, at this point, you mentioned there's an incredible number of parties that are involved in coming together for this, and some of the anecdotal information or feedback we're getting from industry is, there are hurdles, there are roadblocks, and one of the things I think that's so great that you all are doing is looking for those, and not just running into them, but okay, what do we have to do to reduce those impediments, those things that are in our way? Early on in the pilot, are there any things that you're already learning in this program as far as coordinating all of these vast number of groups?
Yes, actually, we are still obviously in the middle of the project, but there've been a lot of learning so far. And I guess probably if I had to pick one, I think it might be that this is a really complex endeavor, and that you need to have patience, you need to have time, and that this is more. I don't mean to sound pessimistic at all, because we're very excited about it and the project's going well. I don't mean to imply otherwise, but it's a lot of work. And what I mean by that is particularly around the charging infrastructure. There's so many facets to getting charging infrastructure installed. We have 2 fleets involved in the project, as well as one of our dealerships. The fleets are Dependable Supply Chain Services and NFI. And they are both, and with our dealer tech equipment, they are all having charging infrastructure installed at their location, in addition to this public charging station that Kim was talking about. And just the process of figuring out how much infrastructure do they need, how many chargers do they need, where on their warehouse site do they want to put that, coordinating with the utility to get the necessary step-up power in place, getting the permits from the local authorities to do the construction, getting the equipment ordered and installed. It is all, it's a long process. And so, again, if there's one recommendation, it would be, if you're interested in purchasing an electric vehicle, to figure out where you're going to charge it, and if you're going to be installing your own charging infrastructure, to get started on that process ASAP. Reach out to your local utility, find out what their programs are to help provide the upgrades to your electricity service at your location, and to begin that process of thinking out, how many trucks you're planning to purchase, what kind of usage do you need, how do you think, do your duty cycles enable you to do overnight charging, or do you need to do fast charging? All of these things in combination of finding out about the power at your site together with your duty cycles and your business model is going to determine what your needs are. And so the sooner you start that process and begin reaching out to the utility and other stakeholders, the better prepared you'll be when time comes to actually get that vehicle in place.
That's excellent, and I'm excited to see. Once we pull all of this information together, it's going to be a tremendous amount of information, and the pilot study is going to be extremely valuable. To that point, Kim, what size of a charging system are you guys putting in?
So we're using the similar chargers to what's installed at the sites that of the fleets that Don had mentioned. So these are it's going to be chargers that they're familiar with, which we found to be really important, so that we can really all capture learnings together. As far as the size of charging, it's going to be a 150 kilowatt charger with 2 dispensers connected to that charger. So going back to your previous question of how long will it take to charge, it depends on how many trucks are connected at a given time. But that's the infrastructure that we plan on installing. But I will say that our plan is to make sure that we size some of the upstream equipment larger than that, so that if and when charging infrastructure gets faster and bigger, or bigger capacity, is what I really mean, we have the capability of switching that out in a pretty effective and efficient manner.
That's pretty cool. In between the Class 8 trucks coming in, are you going to allow for some light duty vehicles to come in, passenger vehicles to come in and use that equipment, or are you going to kind of stay away from that?
Yeah, good question. So we are implementing light duty charging there as well. So we would have 50 kilowatt chargers for light duty vehicles.
Okay, got it. Dawn, everything we're talking about right now is in California, right? 50% of the EVs are in California. They've got very specific air quality issues that they're working on. Tremendous amount of funding from Cap and Trade, LCFS. I mean, there's dollars that are available. What when you look down the road, are folks reaching out to you outside of California for the same type of fleet demands or public demands for heavy duties?
Yes, there's interest across the country, actually, in these types of vehicles. That said, the growth potential, at least the short-term growth potential, is probably highest in California, just because they've been at this the longest. They are by far dedicating the most money to help pay for the vehicle incentives, because, as you might imagine, these vehicles are significantly more expensive than the diesel equivalent. And so it is really difficult to afford them unless you're able to take advantage of some purchase incentives. And California is leading the way there. However, there are programs. There's a clean truck program that exists in New York. In fact, there was just an announcement recently there. You can also get funding for them in Texas and in Chicago, and there's a lot of work on the whole West Coast in terms of trying to support electric vehicles. And then there's other places as well. But in part, I should say, though, it depends on a couple of things. It depends on, number one, what type of operations you have. So, for example, I mean, we're here talking about the Volvo Lights project, but Volvo also owns Mack trucks. And Mack is in the process of doing a pilot project right now in New York City with New York City Sanitation for an all-electric refuse truck. And we'll be doing another pilot in North Carolina. And so if you have a fleet that can rely on a return to home base for charging, you can, I'm going to say it in a way, you can almost be anywhere. And then it also depends on where the utilities are prepared and providing support for the upgrades that are necessary. And there are a number of utilities around the country that are looking at this, are preparing for this, that are looking to LCFS credits and instituting programs like California has. So yeah, this is something that is going to be taking off across the country in many different pockets through many different ways. Clearly, California is the leader, but there are plenty of other places not far behind. And I will say, I mean, in terms of, so much of the money is at a statewide level, but at a federal level too, we're seeing that there's interest in this. A new highway bill was just introduced, and there's a section in there dealing with alternative fuel corridors across the country. And so, as the federal efforts continue as well, I think we'll see this grow faster and faster.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot coming at industry. 2021 is going to be extremely interesting. I mean, we keep talking about the light duty vehicles, and I think it's just important that we really keep an eye on the Class 8. One of the other things that we probably don't have time to talk about right now is the geofencing discussion that's going on in California, where you've got an ICE vehicle, but you get into a certain we'll call it an attainment area or non-attainment area, and then the vehicle switches over to electric to reduce emissions in that area. So that's going to be interesting to see how that transpires and grows in California anyway. I think that's the only place I've heard of it being discussed. Kim, what are your thoughts on what are the differences between a traditional travel center that's offering ULSD? What are the differences between what do you got to look for between your typical truck stop versus implementing DC fast charging? Any words of wisdom there?
Yeah, so it really goes back to some of the challenges that Don brought up, which is that you really got to connect with your utility quite early. In most cases for our travel stops, we're not in major metropolitan areas. We're out in further distant type of areas where it's harder to get as much power that's required. So early engagement with utilities is extremely important. Another difference is that it's a new fuel. So whereas fleets are used to or familiar with diesel, CNG, and gasoline, and there's a network that's set up for these fuels and for publicly accessible fueling dispensers that's able to fuel their vehicles, we don't have a network for heavy duty charging yet. So it really comes down to projects like the Volvo Lights project, where you have a number of different partners working together to ensure that we're building infrastructure, we're building knowledge that a number of different parties have, and we're working together to build a solution that can be replicated in a number of different areas. Here's where we're trying to get to. When we look at our diesel business, our gasoline business, our CNG business, our goal as Trillium and Love is to build relationships with our fleets so that we come up with business models that are mutually beneficial. And when I say that, I mean, where do you need your fueling? Do we have a location that is in the route that you need your fueling in? How do we upgrade that location so that we can help meet your needs? And what type of pricing would help you with your operations and your bottom line? So it comes down to, with a new industry like this, it comes down to working together and being at the table, similar to what Don was saying, very early on, so that you can figure out some of those, or you can answer some of those questions before you run into it when you're operating. Yeah,
that's fantastic, because I mean, as you guys have said already, this is a new piece of asset, right? This is a very expensive piece of equipment, and if the travel centers can allow that owner additional miles, so we have like our last mile travel and stuff, a lot that we're talking about, where we have heavily impacted emissions and air quality, I should say. But to make that investment and be restricted to a small radius of influence, right? I mean, you're taking away from your ROI potentially, right? You want to be able to allow that truck to go further and further and further, and eventually across country. So, and that's exactly where the travel is. That makes a lot of good sense. Okay, I've got a tremendous amount of questions here, and I think we're trying to keep the carpool chats to about 30 minutes. Is there anything else that we should be discussing right now? That, I mean, obviously we're gonna be getting on, and we're gonna be having these conversations further as the pilot test goes. But this has been great, and I really appreciate both of your times to spend with us. And but any closing comments, Dawn?
Yes, actually. Obviously I couldn't possibly talk all about the Volvo Lights project in the short time we have here today. So I do want to give a shameless plug to say that there is a website that's available just to promote the project, and it's at www.lightsproject.com. And so I would encourage folks that are listening to this to go onto that website. because there's a lot more information there. As part of the project, we're spending a lot of time to really educate and increase awareness about the project, because this is so new, and we want to make sure that the learnings that come out of this project are shared, broadly to all kinds of stakeholders. And so there on that website, I mean, of course you'll find articles and things like that, but we've done some webinars already with early lessons learned. There'll be various resources with information, and as the project goes forward, there'll be more lessons learned documents that will be shared there. So I would encourage folks to do that. And the other thing I would say, and again, we didn't get to talk about all aspects of the project, but there are also components in the project where it's not just on-road trucks, but also the fleets are using battery electric off-road equipment, freight handling equipment. There's also a clean energy component, a solar energy generation component at some of the warehouses, and we're looking at a second battery use component of the project to look at energy storage. So there's even a lot more here than we've been able to talk about, and as we said, maybe it's a follow-on conversation in another 6 months down the road to where we can share more detail, or in the meantime folks just go into that website. But yeah, it's really an exciting time in this field, and no doubt that we are on the cusp of something hugely exciting, challenging, but hopefully rewarding too for fleets and for the country and for air quality for lots of reasons.
That's excellent. I know the Fuels Institute's new EV Council is paying extremely close attention to what you guys are doing. Kim, how about you? Any closing remarks?
Yeah. So when we think about this this pilot project, it's very important to our organization to get a handle on it and to understand it. So being a part of it is very valuable to our organization. And when I say that, I'm talking both Trillium and Love. So the things that we learn here are going to be directly connected to the future of our organization. As we look at alternative fueling in the future, this will be sort of the prototype on how we move forward. So it's very exciting, and we're excited to be a part of the project. Excellent
job. Ladies, thank you very much for taking the time to educate me and a lot of other people. And I think with that, we'll close it up, and hopefully we'll be talking again in about 6 more months.
Sounds great. You have a good day. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you.
All right.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Don.